There is a common belief that we are following all the agile ceremonies, so we are a good agile team. This is absolutely wrong, because it's something like going to the church weekly won't make you religious. Agile is all about creating a mindset based on its principles, not practices. Suppose if your team members are new to the Agile Scrum, maybe during the first sprints, you can focus more on offering an environment to focus more on the principles. You don't necessarily need to do all the practices from the initial days. Whatever practice you think that it brings business value, start with that. Then slowly over the course of time, you can implement all the practices. But the mindset is important. The mistake number 2, sometimes the organizations have a very tight schedule, so they will be adding more members to the Agile Scrum team so that they can enhance the scope of the sprint goals and they can deliver the product faster. That's the usual idea. But what happens when you have a big team, say you have around 15 members in your Scrum team, and you're going for a retrospective meeting? It will take ages, right? So I think it won't be a good idea to create a huge team. Maybe you can split the team into 2. That's the better option. An ideal Agile Scrum team is about 6 to 7 members working 100% on the project. Because I noticed that sometimes there are certain key people like technical experts contributing to multiple Scrum teams. I really don't think that's a good idea, because there you will introduce focus switch, then the efficiency of that person will go down and you will not get that expected outcome. So you can have a dedicated, fully focused small team. Especially in multinational companies, there are team members contributing to a single Scrum team from 2-3 different geolocations. Some of the people may be in a customer locations for a reason, and they may have a development factory in a West Coast country. But I really think that it's not a good idea to have team members working from contributing to a single agile team from a very different time zones. The recommended setup is to have one small team sitting each other in the same floor, because agile is all about enhancing communication as well. Because if you are all sitting together, it will increase the togetherness, it will increase the trust, it will enhance the face-to-face communication, which is the next point, the mistake number 4. I have seen people sitting next to each other, but still they communicate over email. You may have a colleague sitting in the next desk. He will not come to your desk to clarify something, but he will send an email copying a lot of other people. Maybe the product manager, Scrum Master, Product Owner, and everyone. No value there. We are spoiling everyone's time. In a good agile setup, enable face-to-face communication. The team needs to communicate maximum through a face-to-face way. If the team continues to do that, maybe the Scrum Master can implement a email ban or something, where we can say that, okay, we are not going to allow any of the team members to communicate each other to clarify questions, but rather go for a coffee, discuss, and solve the problem. It makes sense if you're sending a mail to some other stakeholders who are not in the office. Sometimes in agile organizations, they are too much formal. We do all the ceremonies, try to follow all the principles, but the team is not encouraged to have out-of-office relations. In the sense, they never go to a outing, they never go for a dinner. No, I really recommend that. It will be a wise idea once in a while if the team goes out of for a dinner, play some games. That really increases the communication and trust, which is very important for a project execution. Maybe you don't need to really talk about the work related things there. Just talk your personal things or something else. Talk about movies or something. Maybe if you have a new team member join your team, you can conduct this event and make that person as the facilitator for this event, so that he will get a good introduction. Or if you are not in a situation to go out for an event, maybe you can think about a knowledge sharing workshop or something every 3 sprints, where the team can gather and talk about some topics which is interesting for the other team members. We can have a pizza party there. But the bottom line is encourage the relations and have some fun events as well. Usually the Scrum Master, say in a startup meeting, if a team member is bringing up an impediment, then the Scrum Master will pick it up and he will try to resolve it. But it will be a good idea, maybe, just to coach the team. The Scrum Master can assign that impediment to some other team member if his bucket is full. Of course, the Scrum Master need to assign, of course, and monitor. It's more like a delegation. The Scrum Master not need to take all the responsibilities here. This will help the team to grow further to an autonomous team that really adds a value to an organization. The mistake number 7, which is maybe an after effect of the non-agile world. When a company is doing the transformation from a non-agile world to the agile world, usually the seniors in the team become Scrum Master. Project manager or the project lead becomes Scrum Master. And that's a bad idea, because of course there are good Scrum Masters who were project leads or project managers, but they need to offer coaching. They should not act as a boss there, or they should not allow the team to wait for them for making any decisions. The Scrum Master is a facilitator, so he need to coach the team, bring the maturity to the team so that they can have all the good agile principles in place. But Scrum Master is not a boss, and I'm referring to this point somewhere else as well. We'll discuss there more. Because it's maybe due to one of the Agile Manifesto principle, because it says that emphasis is more on working software than documentation. Does not mean that you don't need a documentation, but it tells that you need a working software first, then only the documentation adds value. Maybe in the waterfall model or the non-agile world, people used to prepare a lot of documentation, artifacts, all the design and everything before they start implementing the software. Here it says, okay, first focus on the working software, then add documentation which are really useful for that working piece of software. Suppose, say, let's take source code documentation. You can create a simple documentation tab. There is no such predefined format. Each company follows their own ways. The team can agree on a template which is useful for that project. We don't need to really document that detail, or we don't need to really keep a history or something in the source code. Or you can define, as a team, you can agree, okay, what kind of UML document I will have along with the software. That's a team's decision. Does not mean that you should not document anything. You must document. Documentation is a good practice. Adding some points to the mistake number 7, the Scrum Master. Here, the Scrum Master, sometimes if he's from a leadership background, where in the organization, if he's a project lead or a project manager, there is a tendency to become a dictator. He will try to act very bossy. He will not listen to anyone. He will try to push his ideas. That's a real bad traits of a boss, not a leader. They really push their ideas to the team, and the team will be waiting for approval for everything. No, that's really bad idea. If you have this in your Scrum team, avoid it. Scrum Master is not a boss. Scrum Master is not a manager. Scrum Master is a facilitator. He ensures that the Agile team is matured enough, and they are getting matured all the time, and they follow the good Agile principles, and he coaches them. The product owner does not participate in the processes. In multinational companies, sometimes the product owner will be located in near to the customer location, where you will have a development team somewhere else, and the team needs to communicate to the product owner over some chatting to, email or instant messaging tool. That's not a good idea. Proxy product owner could work there, but the product owner must be accessible to the team all the time, possibly for a face-to-face conversation. He need to participate in the refinement meeting, if possible planning meeting, first half, where he can set up the sprint goal and all those things. He don't need to necessarily join the stand-up meeting, but the product owner must be a part of the certain process, and he should be really reachable to the development team. In Agile, what I like the most is retrospective, because we know that nothing is perfect, neither the Agile Scrum. When we start, we will have a lot of mistakes, and over the course of time we will learn the mistakes, then we need to fix it. It's a trial and error method kind of thing. So if you don't have a retrospective meeting, the team is not getting a space to tell their feedback. You must need to have a retrospective meeting after each sprint, where as a Scrum Master, you need to enable the team to talk about what was good, what needs improvement, and you can create action items based on that. We need to ensure that there is a retrospective meeting from the sprint 1. This is also could be due to the hangover from non-Agile world. In non-Agile world, and especially in waterfall model, the project manager is the sole responsible person for the complete delivery. But in Agile world, Scrum Master is not responsible for the sprint goals, sprint delivery. With the support of the team, the Scrum Master ensures that the team is delivering the committed user stories. Does not mean that the Scrum Master need to take the whole responsibility. It's a responsibility of each and every development team member. The Scrum Master ensures that they have an environment to deliver the commitments. The Scrum Master is a mediator between the product owner and the development team. Suppose if I have a clarification in a user story, I'm the development team member, I need to go to the Scrum Master to connect to the product owner. And Scrum Master will go to the product owner with the same question. He gets the answer, he tells me. No. You don't need the Scrum Master to communicate to the product owner. You can directly go to the product owner and get clarifications there. You don't need to really bottleneck the Scrum Master for it. The development team needs to go to the product owner, get all the clarifications and done, where Scrum Master can focus on his own duties. So when you are doing a stand-up, Suppose if you find that there is a possible side effect due to your current implementation. Now everything works very well, but in future it may impact the performance of the system. For example, you need to really bring in that topic on the same day in the stand-up meeting to the Scrum Master. If you're feeling that okay, now everything works, it's okay, no, things can go really wrong there. Removing an impediment at the early stage will be really smooth, so that the product owner can clarify with the business, the customer, the Scrum Master can follow up on these particular discussions, and when it's really needed, they can act upon it. So all the obstacles need to be communicated at the initial stage. There's a big tendency for certain Scrum teams that they discuss the technical things also in the daily stand-up. It's not a good practice. The ideal Scrum daily stand-up will be of max 15 minutes. The Scrum Master need to park if there are any other discussions. Say, suppose if one of the team member need to share some technical information to someone else who is currently doing some tasks, and someone else input is needed, then don't allow them to talk there, but park that discussion, and after the stand-up, both of them can continue there and they can finish the discussion. You don't need everyone else for that. But you need to make sure that your stand-ups are very short. You will be talking about what I have done yesterday, what I will be doing today, do I have any problems, any blockers to finish my current task. Simple. Usually, I also have done when I was a product owner sometimes. Before we start the sprint, the product owner will prepare the backlog items for the next sprint. It's not a good practice. You need to have a healthy backlog at least well in advance for say next 2 to 3 sprints, so that the teams can spend time in refining those stories from the backlog along with their progress in the user stories and for the current sprint. A healthy backlog is the sole responsibility of a product owner, and he needs to spend quality time in preparing a good backlog. You must have backlog for at least 2 to 3 sprints ahead. The mistake number 17, scope change during the sprint. That's very common. The team commits to a set of user stories, but suddenly the management changed their mind. They get a new set of requirements and the product owner has pressure to finish that. Then he will change the scope of the sprint. No. And I have seen personally this happens a lot during the bug fixing phase, where you suddenly get a release ticket and you need to push a user story to the next sprint to finish this release gating ticket. Maybe Scrum is not a great way of handling bugs. Maybe I'll talk about it sometime later. Maybe Kanban is a better option there. But still, avoid changing the scope of a sprint, and that's the responsibility of the product owner. He need to say no to the external stakeholders. I was working with one of the team member long back, and he was with an opinion that there is no need of a code review in Agile Scrum team, because he was saying that okay, we are all talking about self-ownership. I'm writing the code, I'm responsible for it. Why it needs to be reviewed by someone? Because I have full responsibility. But no, your code, at least you need to do good code review practices. Code review is not to find your bugs. Find the flaws in your design. Maybe it's a partial way of knowledge transfer as well, correct? Your implementation is getting a chance to be reviewed by a few people. They also is understanding what you have done and all those things, and you get a second opinion. So I really recommend to implement code reviews. I'm sure that 99% of the team, Agile Scrum teams, follows code review, but I have seen exceptions as well. And Along with code review, at least implement pair programming. When you have new team members, or when you have people with a different experience level, maybe the expert in the team can sit with the junior resources, where he get a chance to mentor those people. The daily stand-up meeting is not to tell what you have done to the Scrum Master. It's to share an update from you to everyone else. You don't need to really tell to the Scrum Master and listen to him. Share your updates to everyone. It's not a status meeting. No or part-time Scrum Master. In some organizations, one of the team member during the daily stand-up meeting will get upgraded to a Scrum Master. They will not have a dedicated Scrum Master. That's a bad practice. It's a good idea to have a dedicated Scrum Master for any Scrum team, where his focus will be to coach the team and everyone else can focus on deliveries. This dual role setup may not work there. Mistake number 21, no follow-ups for the action items from the retrospective. Usually when we discussed it earlier, when we have a retrospective, we may have a list of actions about certain things to improve. It should not stop there. You need to continuously follow up the action items and fix it. You need to prioritize and assign to the team members. If you have an IT issue which comes as a retrospective item and you have an action item, you can assign to your team member and ensure that this action item is reviewed in the next retrospective meeting until and unless it's fixed. DOD stands for definition of done, DOR stands for definition of ready. Sometimes when you have a team member, junior team members, I have seen personally, when you tell him to do certain things without a DOD in a user story, maybe he will focus only on the coding part. He will just implement the feature. It will be super cool, no problem, but there may not be any static code analysis report, there may not be any unit test or something. And that's not his problem, because his definition of done is the implementation. But as a product owner, your definition of done may be very different, because you may be thinking from a different level. So it's always good to set the expectations through a DOD in the user stories. Similarly, the DOR, when you pick up a user stories for refinement, you need to check whether it's really ready for implementation. There are a lot of engineering development team where they don't have a testing phase in the sprint. What they will be doing, they will pick up a user story, develop, unit test, deliver, not testing in the same sprint. And those kind of development will lead to a lot of basic problems when they may have a different Scrum team for testing, but the problem here is that they will deliver the feature as a part of the sprint demo or something, but the implementation will not be tested. It will be just delivered, and maybe when this feature after a few sprints, the testing team will pick it up for verification and validation purpose. That time they struggle because they will have a lot of integration and other problems, and they may even have basic crashes and all those things. Your software maturity will not be good enough for verification and validation if you don't have a testing activity within the sprint. So I really recommend to have a multifunctional team, Scrum team, where you will have even a Scrum column also for testing, where after the implementation all the features goes to the testing, where at least a basic smoke or sanity is done, and then it's approved. Otherwise your features will be approved without testing. There are several products running. Imagine if there are several products running in a company and only one product owner, he will be bottlenecked with all the products. The problem is that then the development team will not get this guy if they have a clarification during the sprint. Then they will be blocked. It's really ideal to have one product owner for one product. Or it's not a mistake, maybe it's a recommendation. It's really worth to spend time in developing test automation frameworks for the product you are developing from the initial days, so that you can do a continuous integration, deployment, and testing whenever you are releasing a feature. You don't need you don't need to spend manual effort, and you are always ensuring that whatever you are delivering so far is of a good quality. Those were the common 25 mistakes I found. Please share your comments. It was rather a long video. Thanks for watching. I'll come back to you with another topic. Bye bye.